Welcome to the Contrarians, where we are right and you are wrong. I'm Julio.
And I'm Alex. Here on the show, we rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. For the first half of each episode, Contrarians Corner, we trash the fresh red tomatoes and praise the rotten green splotches, making our case any way we can.
The aptly titled Real Talk serves as the second half of each episode. This is where we discuss our true feelings on the movie we're covering. For more information on our podcast and to browse past episodes, you can head over to our website, wearethecontrarians.com.
From there, you can also access our Patreon and merchandise, because capitalism.
If you enjoy our attempts at comedic film discussions, we encourage you to subscribe and leave us a review on whatever podcatcher you use.
If you'd like to reach out to us directly, that's what social media is for. You can find us on most platforms as @ContrarianPrime.
You can also see what we look like if you go to youtube.com/@ContrarianPrime, and you can contact us by email at wearethecontrarians@gmail.com.
I think that covers it.
Then it's time for the podcast. And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for West Side Story 2021 edition.
Hello and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my cohort in the never-ending travel of the contrary, Julio Oliveira. Senior Spielberg returning after not too long of an absence.
No, not even a year.
Yeah, I was about to say within the past year we covered Saving Private Ryan. This is his most recent entry, correct?
That's a good question. No. After this, he did The Fabelmans, his autobiographical drama.
Of Joe Hulbert fame. Yes, he's...
Really?
Oh, dude, he fucking loves that movie. I've never seen The Fabelmans. The only reason I know about it is pretty much just hearing him talk about it. And I think you circled me and you smartened me up that Paul Dano's in it.
Yes. Seth Rogen is in it. Michelle Williams is in it.
Well,
it's not the sum of its parts, sadly. In my opinion, obviously Joe disagrees.
Whatever the case, yes, confirmed. Steven Spielberg back in the saddle here on the Contrarians with his 2021 musical entry, West Side Story, starring amongst others, Baby Driver himself, Ansel Elgort, the charisma vacuum that he is. Then, brother, he came to play in this one. Just gets trounced by everybody else in this, and he shows up, and you're like, why?
When Spielberg calls, you just answer. You show up, even if you are severely outmatched. You still, what are you gonna say? You gotta turn it down?
Yeah, well, yeah. That's, I would imagine, especially as a young actor. I mean, he's not like decrepit, but he's getting up there in age. He's got to be in his 70s, right? Spielberg.
Oh, I think you're talking about Ansel Elgort.
Oh no,
like, what?
The point I was trying to make, if you're given the opportunity to work with Spielberg, do it, especially at this stage, because if you don't, you'll fucking live to regret it. Spielberg, though, I mean, heavy Contrarians history, because the first episode we ever did that got any type of actual, like, traction, you know, being relative to what we do here, was our Jaws episode. So we owe a great deal to Steve.
And so does Ansel Elgort. Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Spielberg.
Yeah, Elgort owes a lot to the devil or whoever he made the fucking deal with here to get to this level of fame that he has. But an awards would-be darling. I know it did get nominated for a lot. I don't think it took home too much, but also I think the bigger story with this one is a victim of the time it was released, as it was, I believe, a holiday release. Yes, December 10th, 2021, but still in that era where people were a bit trepidatious to go to the movie theater.
I mean, this is around the time of Spider-Man No Way Home, right? Didn't we just talk about the new variant?
Well, you also told me that, yeah, exactly. There was that. And yeah, I am confident in saying this movie came out at a different point in time. It probably would have done a lot better for itself. It was, it needed to make $300 million to break even. And I'm here to tell you it did not. So stick around for more of that.
Who was collecting the big paycheck there? Did you know a single person in this cast?
The $300 million, that includes like everything, like Spielberg's fee, the marketing, yeah, all that shit. The budget for the film itself was $100 million, but still, yeah, that's it's a lot of money. But it is cited as one of the best musical films of all time. So I think it's only proper we take it to task here today. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Didn't it get a Best Picture nomination?
Yeah, it did. It was the Anora of its time.
Well, Nora won, brother. Yeah, Okay, fuck off. You can't compare anything. Sean Baker and Steven Spielberg, like the biggest blockbuster maker of all time, against this indie up-and-comer.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was the blockbuster that didn't win? It was the Dune 2 of its time.
Did that movie make money? I don't know how those movies work.
It must have made enough for them to announce that there's a Dune 3 coming out.
I would say so. Oh, $714 million box office. Yeah, I think it did all right for itself. But Batista and Lea Seydoux just, popping champagne and eating caviar on the beach together.
They don't care about the lack of Oscar wins. They just want the sequel.
Brother, I didn't realize Florence Pugh was in that movie. So she was in the back-to-back blockbusters. Cleared $1 billion with fucking Oppenheimer, and then Dune 2 bringing home the bacon. Speaking of which, before we get into this, I think it's actually a good segue. Did you see that the re-release of Interstellar in IMAX made over $100 million?
No, I did not. And I contributed to that.
Hell yeah. That movie's like 15 years old. But Julio, people have movie theater fatigue. They don't want to go to the movie theaters.
Is that what Spielberg was saying when this movie bombed?
No, in said segue, I think this is an example of a movie that could have been like Rent or some shit. Even though we've had a film adaptation of West Side Story before, you look at like Wicked. This movie came out when everything was like fine.
I can't believe I compared this to Dune when Wicked was right there.
That's true. And you're the musical guy on this. All right, 91%. Certified fresh, comprised of nearly 400 reviews. So this isn't just one of our movies that got like 15 reviews and each one was like, yeah, it was all right. There's a lot of people really into what they were watching. Julio, which reviews did you pull for us?
Jesus wept, baby John. Who did that to your ear?
All right, fresh quotes from the Rotten Tomatoes website. We're going to start with Maria Latilla from Filmhounds magazine, who says, West Side Story is still widely entertaining, heartbreaking, and timely. It's grand filmmaking on an epic scale, and Spielberg once again proves he can do anything, being a true master of his craft. Can Spielberg do anything? Can he do everything?
I'm not going to tell him he can't.
I mean, at this point, yeah, he has enough money that he can do anything. That has nothing to do with craft. It's like, who's going to say no when he says, hey, I want to remake West Side Story? Who's going to tell him, hey, maybe it's just okay the way it is. You don't need to retell it in 2021.
I'd be the guy there like, hey, can you make another movie like The Terminal? I really liked The Terminal.
Alex, I think the movie he made before this was Ready Player One. So I'm sure everybody was just happy to have him do something a little more respectable.
Yeah, his he is Steven Spielberg, but let's be honest, the where did it
all go wrong?
Crystal Skull, that would have been it, right? Because then came Tintin and War Horse, known in our circles as Boar Horse, Lincoln, which I don't know how many times I've expressed my conflicted thoughts on Lincoln. Yes, so since about 2008, it's been little rocky, little back and forth, little 50-50 action.
And then he was like, well, I better get that musical out before I completely run out of goodwill. Next, Blake Howard from Dark Horizons says, West Side Story, it's not so much a masterpiece, but rather a master's piece. A film so formally and technically assured that it envelops you. So he was talking about Spielberg's dick. The master's piece.
Wouldn't that be something? Spielberg just had like a fucking elegant dick. Like the people just talk about it in the industry. Not like in a weird predatory way. It's just like,
just very well groomed.
Tom Cruise was next to him at the urinal when they were filming War of the Worlds, and he was like, good God.
He wears a top hat. There's a monocle. All right, next. Brett Dose from In Session Film says, I have no shame in admitting that I was one of the doubters before this was released. I mean, it's only a reworking of one of the most influential movie musicals ever. Luckily, that Spielberg guy knows what he's doing. Who is this guy? Is he trying to be funny? I'm assuming he is, but that Spielberg guy, there comes a point, I guess, in a filmmaker's career where you really can't do no wrong, right? Like, even if you completely bomb and your movie doesn't make any money and whatever, if you're on Spielberg's level, it doesn't matter. Like, you're at a point where you're not going to stop being Steven Spielberg.
No.
Man, what's that like?
We spent a better part of a year talking about Peter Bogdanovich, who, like, the majority of the movies he made lost money to varying degrees of, like, how bad it lost money, but he's still regarded as, like, an elite filmmaker.
Right, but he had to, like, sweat blood.
I don't fear that Spielberg's going to end up destitute like Peter Bogdanovich kind of did.
Right.
But yeah, I get your point. I don't know if he could make enough bombs for it to counterbalance like
right?
what he did. Yeah.
Like, Spielberg will never have to hustle again.
No.
Ever. Like, Bogdanovich was hustling for every movie.
Till the end.
Yeah. All right. Last one. It's very simple. Don Shanahan from Cinephile Hissy Fit podcast. Wow. Says, we should have never doubted Steven Spielberg. When did you doubt Spielberg, Alex? I think that happens to all of us. It must have happened to all of us at least once. Was it War Horse?
I didn't like War Horse. I think a legit, like a serious answer would be like when I saw he was directing Munich. And even though he had obviously done Schindler's List and, and Saving Private Ryan, motherfucker had dealt with some serious issues before. Like, he was coming off that stretch where it was Minority Report, Catch Me If You Can, The Terminal, and War of the Worlds. So it seemed like he had kind of settled into this new, like, kind of lighter, maybe, albeit action-packed, but lighter, niche or field. And then Munich, I was like, let's see. And then, of course, to me, that's one of his best movies. So that would be my answer.
Tintin. See, mine doesn't have a happy ending. I think Tintin was like, all right, I know Spielberg, but this doesn't look good. And then I watched it and I was right. So sometimes the doubts come through. They prevail and they're
Wasn't
right.
that like a CG movie?
Yes. Yeah. It's a CG and...
Was that the same year Scorsese did his CG movie? What was that called?
Hugo.
Was that the same year?
It might have been.
Yeah.
Was it something in the water? Everybody wants to play with those toys. Robert Zemeckis finally convinced everybody to come and play in his sandbox.
Then Tom Hanks told him, he's like, Steven, you gotta try. I can't do it, Tom Hanks. I can only like try to do it yelling because the Tom Hanks thing. But all right.
When you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette to your last dying day.
West Side Story, look, it's one of the more famous plays and just general like ideas of a story that's out there. So if we don't walk you through bit by bit the story of West Side Story, it's easy to find. We'll let you know what happens here, but I think a lot more of our discussion is going to be about direction and our cast at hand here. But West Side Story was 57. I was reading this earlier today, I believe. Yes. 1957 was the original premiere of West Side Story at DC, Philadelphia, and Broadway. It was a musical, music by Leonard Bernstein, lyrics by Stephen Sondheim. It's a book by Arthur Lawrence. The concept was Jerome Robbins. And if you can't tell by the end of this, the inspiration for it was, of course, William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
Okay, I was waiting. I was like, are these motherfuckers not going to list Shakespeare in the credits?
No, that's, I think, based on or, story by. It has to be attributed to it every time.
Based on an idea by.
Yeah, Bill Shakespeare. He's still collecting. Man, can you imagine being one of the bloodline that still gets royalties for Shakespeare stuff? Crazy. And then the original film adaptation was in 1961, which, amongst others, starred Rita Moreno, who returned for our film du jour. She's in this one as well.
She lobbied to play Anita again, but they told her no. The CGI is there, but it's not really there. We can't do the de-aging that much.
She won Best Supporting Actress, and that movie dominated the 1962 Academy Awards, bringing in 10 awards, including Best Picture. I think Steven, had his sights set high and aimed to do that. It just wasn't to be. The Democratic hoax wiped out audiences across the world, and they just weren't out there to turn out in droves.
What was the pandemic back in 1961? Racism?
Well,
Never found the vaccine for that one.
nope. We're still trying.
Alex, did it occur to you that this is not the first time we've covered Romeo and Juliet after a fashion?
We've done a lot of movies, Julio. Help me out here.
Shakespeare in Love.
Oh, duh. Especially with the conversation of Oscars and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, moving along. In 1957, the Jets, a gang of white youths, brawl with the Sharks, a gang of Puerto Rican youths for control of San Juan Hill on Manhattan's Upper West Side. New York City Police Department Sergeant Krupke and Lieutenant Schrank disband their latest scuffle, with Schrank deriding their conflict as pointless since the neighborhood will soon be demolished to make way for Lincoln Center. The gangs are too proud to care, and Jet leader Riff proposes a rumble between the two gangs. He approaches his friend Tony, who is on parole, for help. Tony declines, wishing to reform with the help of Valentina, the Puerto Rican owner of Doc's General Store. So, setting the stage here, classic tale of war-torn New York, it seems. The movie starts and it's like, man, use the sets for Saving Private Ryan again. I do love, though, the title hits immediately. It's like you're watching a fucking documentary about like mass casualty or something. Just West Side Story. All that you could have needed was like, based on a true story.
Were you sitting back as the credits? Oh, well, no, there's no opening credits, right? It's just the title.
Yeah.
So it never even gives you a chance to absorb the fact that you don't know anybody in the cast.
Not really. But that commenced quickly, obviously. I was like, who are these people? I will say that Lieutenant Schrank,
yes,
is played by Corey Stoll. For those of you who don't know, I don't know him from much, but I do know him from Midnight in Paris, the Woody Allen film. He plays Ernest Hemingway in that and does so fantastically. Okay,
I'm glad you recognize him. I didn't know how long it'd been since you watched Midnight in Paris, because he has like, what, 1-2 scenes in that movie?
Yeah, but honestly, that's like one of the first things that comes to mind when I think of that movie.
Yeah, it's just him and Adrian Brody.
You're a boxer. He's like talking to Owen Wilson. Me? No. You should box.
Well, Alex, the rest of the world knows him as the villain Yellow Jacket from the Ant-Man movies. So you need to catch up, man.
All right. So anyway.
His speech pattern in the Ant-Man movies is not quite as what is he doing, Alex? Is he auditioning for the Black Dahlia?
Yeah, it's a bit much. I don't know if he's the one that says it or if it's Krupke. I should have written down who it was, but second Joe Holbert reference to the episode, because he comes in and goes, Jesus wept, and literally the only living human I know that uses that expression is Joe.
It's Schrank. If it's something loud and offensive, it's going to be Schrank. Krupke is just more like, boys, can we not get along?
Yeah, you kids.
Yeah,
all of yous needs to get out of here. In the first scuffle, they're like just chasing each other around. At one point, I believe it's one of the Jets, just starts hurling trash cans at the Sharks like he's fucking New Jack in ECW. I started like hooting and hollering loudly when this happened. But then, as mentioned, there's a rumble being planned. And unfortunately, we couldn't make it 10 minutes into the movie without Ansel Elgort showing up.
He's not in the rumble, though. He's
not. It makes for an interesting start, but then the vacuum's turned on and all of the energy and interest is sucked out of the movie when Baby Driver shows up.
He's supposed to have done a year in the pen, Alex. Do you buy him?
Because he killed someone. And at the risk of spoiling things here, getting ahead of ourselves, he's also supposed to be like fucking Roberto Duran, or like his hands are supposed to have concrete in them, dude. Like, oh man. I will say, I don't know if it was for this movie or if it happened in between this and Baby Driver, or if I don't remember it from Baby Driver. Either there's some really good makeup going on, or Homeboy has had his nose broken at some point, because he's got like that broken nose. Like his nose was probably smashed at one point. It's got like a bit of a curve to it and whatnot. That could be makeup. I'm inclined to believe it's not.
Jamie Foxx got him.
Because they don't like draw attention to it. But I was like, oh, White Boy's had his nose broken before.
It's not enough to sell him as a dude that did a year for almost killing someone.
They need to show him like, the backwards bandana and the wife beater undershirt tucked into his jumpsuit and shit.
For the first time ever, I took a look inside. And that was rough doing that. But I gotta stay with myself. You know what I mean?
Meanwhile, Maria, shark leader Bernardo's sister, is betrothed by his friend Chino, but yearns for an independent future. At a neighborhood dance at the community center that night, Tony and Maria meet and fall in love, infuriating Bernardo. However, Bernardo accepts Riff's terms to participate. Riff is the Jets leader. To participate in the proposed rumble, provided that Tony attends as well. Like he's Tom Hardy in Warrior or something, like we'll do it if he shows up. Tony later confesses his love to Maria on her fire escape, and they vow to reconvene the next day. So important thing to keep in mind, very Titanic-pilled this story in the sense of young people falling in love. And I think by the time this movie's over, they've known each other for like legitimately less than 3 days.
On my notes, I wrote if Maria was British, she would be played by Kate Winslet. But as it is, we get the future Snow White, Alex, Rachel Zegler. Did you recognize her? Where you're like, hey,
no,
I've seen you. You look controversial. She got Scorsese, and now there were clips or quotes of her somewhat talking trash about the original Snow White, and so now everybody hates the new Snow White that hasn't even come out.
Do you want to start World War III? Ay, Maria, Maria.
I remember that Snow White thing, and it was one of those things that it's like, I'm not taking the bait on and I'm shutting you down, is what I said, because she was born in 2001, man. I don't give a fuck what someone that young thinks about a movie that's 100 and X amount of years old.
Has she even seen the original West Side Story?
Yeah, no joke. You know what? My immediate response would be like, have you been on the Snow White minecart ride at Disney World? No? Then I don't really think you have much room to talk. Of course, Snow White's a problematic movie. Anything from the 1920s is fairly problematic. But, it's, that's the kind of question or stance that my immediate retort or question would be, okay, then do you want to remind people of that? Are you trying to erase it with what you're doing? Don't you think your efforts would be more suited to something original instead? But,
like a West Side Story remake.
Exactly.
I wonder if there's two ways that it could have gone, right? She either was all like around the set of West Side Story, she just kept preaching how bad the original West Side Story was because Maria was not Hispanic. Like, they cast, who plays Maria the original? It's some white actress.
Judy Garland. No, hold on. Natalie Wood.
Yes.
Yeah.
Famous Puerto Rican actress, Natalie Wood. So, can you see it? Can you just picture Rachel Zegler just pontificating about all the failings of the original West Side Story while Spielberg is just shuffling and we're like, all right, can we just move on? Or the other way around, where she hasn't even seen it. And so she meets Rita Moreno and she doesn't know. She's like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Everybody else in the cast is in awe of the original Anita, and Rachel Zegler is completely oblivious.
I saw this, read, I guess I saw it. It was on, Instagram Reels or whatever. This incredible story Josh Brolin told. I don't know how recent it is, but I had never heard it before. He talked about working on the Goonies with Steven Spielberg, and he talked about, I couldn't remember which part he was referencing. It's been a minute since I've seen the Goonies, but when they're crawling out of like this tunnel, it might be when they get to the fucking pirate ship. But anyway, he's like, I'm 16 and I think, that I'm an actor that's kind of like taking on the world. And he's like, I've thought about my character's motivations and, my strained relationship with my mother. And I'm thinking, and I approached Steve and I'm like, hey, what if like, the crawling out of this tunnel is symbolic of me crawling out of my mother's womb. And, maybe I can start crying and, this thing really affects my character. And he's like, and Steven's looking at me, not saying anything and just kind of nodding. So I'm like, oh man, this is really hitting him hard. And then I finish what I have to say. And Steven goes, why don't you just act? And that's what I imagine with old 2001 baby here, that she listed off all these things wrong with her character. And Steven was just like, he pointed to, he had like a wheelbarrow full of all his Oscars. And he's like, I think I'm going to side with these guys over here.
Listen, I already have my hands full with Ansel Elgort, so Can you just not put anything else on my plate?
You see what that motherfucker's name is? Ansel Elgort. I'm supposed to make this shit work on a massive scale.
This character, Maria, is probably the crux of my problems with this story more than anything. Is Juliet in Romeo and Juliet supposed to be this insufferable? I don't remember. I've seen the DiCaprio Claire Danes version, and from what I remember, Claire Danes was lovely in that movie, right?
Claire Danes is lovely and everything. Catherine Brewster, come on, man.
Yeah, so you're rooting for Juliet. Juliet doesn't get on your nerves. She's not like, I'm a woman now, I can make my own decisions. There's something just very annoying about Maria and the way that she's pitched here that I think keeps me from investing in that love story. I mean, the other thing that keeps me from investing is that Ansel Elgort is part of the love story as well. But don't you agree that everybody else in this movie is more interesting and more likable than these two?
Yes. I'm not kidding. I found myself invested at points, and then Ansel Elgort came on the screen and the vacuum turned on, and I was just like, all right.
But anyway,
yeah, she's fine. I assume everyone in this, it's actually them singing.
Man, I would hope so. It's fucking Spielberg, so they better bring the pipes.
They both have good singing voices, but yes, you're right.
Man,
like
you just snuck a compliment to Elgort there.
Well, I also compliment him if he really does have a broken nose. I'm like, all right, man knows what he's doing. Unless it's some like really lame story, like he sneezed and hit his face on his fucking iPad or some shit. But case in point, the dance scene here at the the community rec center.
That's right, they'll high.
Yeah, they go vamos, and then they all get like really into it and shit. And then we have to stop so Ansel Elgort and this girl can like court each other. Not a fan.
Did it break your suspension of disbelief when you saw a bunch of white dudes dancing the mambo like they've done it their entire lives?
Yeah, it's like, all right, because I don't even know. Yeah, TV wasn't really widely available yet, so I was trying to think of where they would have seen it.
I mean, I guess they keep spying on the Puerto Ricans, so they're about to have picked up some moves.
Like gazing over the fence and then going back. It's like, no, it's step, pause, pivot.
Oye, Javi, ponle fuego, vamos!
Yeah, so they schedule this fight, like in the way that builds up. We joked about this only being over the course of fucking 60 hours or so. This movie. But they build this fucking fight up like it's fucking Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather. Like we had to wait 5 years past its prime to see it. Bernardo and his girlfriend, Anita is played by
Ariana DeBose.
Thank you. And if I read correctly, she won an Oscar for this?
She won an Oscar. So she won the same Oscar that Rita Moreno won for playing the same character.
That's fun.
So when they remake West Side Story again in 20 years, whoever plays Anita is going to have a lot of pressure on her.
They argue about life in New York compared to Puerto Rico, with Anita's belief in the American dream, not dusty roads. Contrasting with Bernardo's rude pessimism, police interrogate the Jets, who deny any knowledge about the Rumble. During their date at the Cloisters, Tony reveals to Maria that his year-long imprisonment for nearly beating a rival gang member to death had scared him into reforming. Maria makes Tony promise to stop the Rumble, and they make promises to one another as if marrying before God.
24 hours maybe after meeting.
What's our James Franco, what's that movie? Rice. It's Rice. What's that called?
Camille.
That's kind of like the end of that movie.
Except they're still alive.
Yeah.
Ansel Elgort here, Baby Driver, humble bragging, I guess, about how much of a badass he used to be.
No shit.
Did you feel bad for Chino, the guy that she's supposed to be dating? The one Puerto Rican that is not in a gang?
Yeah, he seems really like innocent and like a nice guy. And then you immediately learn that he can, let his hair down, loosen his tie a little bit because he busts out into dance. So yeah, I was feeling Chino.
Yeah, Maria doesn't feel him at all.
She does not.
No, she's into tall white ex-cons. Ariana DeBose, Alex, before I forget, because I think that we praise her highs, so we kind of have to also acknowledge her lows. The most recent movie she's been in was Kraven the Hunter. she
Well-
is. She is. She's not gonna be getting any Oscars for that.
Yeah, this whole lead-in is the American Dream thing. You know, it's we get a musical number about how it's better. The women think it's better here, and the men, no, we should have never came here. Like, that's basically the message of it. And it's a really fantastic musical number. And then it goes into this next scene I was talking about, and I was kind of riding this high, and then Ansel Elgort starts talking about how I almost beat a man to death with my bare hands, and I'm like, all right.
Alex, at this point in the movie, well, I think we're maybe like a third into it, but it is. I think we've talked about it enough that I can bring up that if you're going to remake West Side Story in 2021, why don't you set it in 2021? Because you can't tell me that.
Playing with dynamite there.
But fuck it, if somebody can do it, it's Spielberg, right? If you're going to make a movie about racial tension and troubled youth and just basically that type of social anxiety and clashes, 2021, I mean, was just ripe for the taking. Because, you know, he was making this, I'm assuming this started before even the pandemic hit. So, you know, you didn't even have to worry about that yet. You just have to worry about the rise of MAGA and, the backlash against immigrants and all that stuff. So it feels like a bit of a cheat to take a few steps backwards and say, no, we're still going to set it in the late 50s, early 60s, wherever this is happening. Because it gives you a little bit of a shield that I think you shouldn't have. I mean, the original, the West Side Story is set, it's contemporary to a setting, right? Like it came out at a time that was saying, yeah, this is happening right now. And when Spielberg, one of the most successful, most powerful filmmakers alive today, retells the story and feels like he needs to hide behind, like, I don't know, 4 decades, 5 decades of history to tell something that it's very clearly applicable to today, it's a bit of a letdown. And honestly, I mean, I would take it from like a different director, like somebody that doesn't have the clout, that might be concerned about the backlash. But fucking Spielberg, we were talking about it when we were doing the quotes. Like, he can take it. So he could have done it. And I think it would have been so much more powerful. Imagine the Jets just like snapping their fingers with their red hats.
See, the problem in that is that's not fun. I almost want to side with Spielberg on this just because
racism is not meant to be fun, Alex.
Yeah, but dudes dancing while saying use guys, stuff like that. It's at least like, oh, what a bygone era. I'm telling you, you're going to remember this conversation in 30 years, 40 years when there's movies that try to make, like, someone tries to make a musical about the fucking January 6th insurrection.
I will not be watching, Alex.
You'll be watching it for the purposes of my argument. You'll be watching and going, I don't want to be reminded of this. And then you'll get up and leave the theater.
Okay, but then you could apply the same thing to like people that were alive, in the 60s and were like,
oh, dude, in 61, and this play and movie has a contemporary basis. Like, people had to be freaking out, man. What the fuck is this?
They're like, it's really harsh, like the reality out there, but there's also dancing.
Yeah,
pretty.
You trying to tell me I'm wrong through song and dance? That's the worst kind of way to do it.
Mutually assured destruction.
I don't know what that is.
Tony tries to convince Riff to call off the Rumble by stealing his newly bought gun. Oh, there you go. That's a part of the story that you couldn't apply to modern time because he has to work really hard to find a firearm. Like, if it was based in 2021, he just would have fallen down and found one.
I felt a distinct lack of Dick Miller in that scene where he gets the gun.
The Jets steal it back with Riff reasserting that the Rumble will happen as scheduled.
Turn off the juice, boy!
Dude, this is probably the most loser that Tony looks. Like Baby Driver, Ansel Elgort. He opens that number with the upper hand, right? Like he has them. Like he takes the gun and then he starts playing around with it, and somehow he fumbles it, and then by the end of the song, he's lost the respect. He's lost the gun, and I think I saw a single tear. Was it sweat or was it a single tear?
I don't know. I was probably at that point taking notes and just being like, man, this guy sucks.
But they call him Superman.
Oh yeah, when he shows up, that's what it was. Because I was taking notes because he goes, "Gee Willikers, Batman." Yeah, they have this fucking capoeira dance fighting scene together.
Yes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about now.
It's happening tonight. That's all we know. The morning paper's filled with stories about dead kids. Not on my watch.
Schrank orders Krupke and other police officers to stop the rumble from occurring, but they are unsuccessful. Arriving at the rumble, Tony speaks to Riff, who is so confident that Tony is joined them, he relinquishes the gun. Tony then explains his feelings for Maria to Bernardo, but Bernardo uses his boxing skills to injure Tony as Tony refuses to fight. Bernardo then goes after Riff, so Tony fights, punching Bernardo on the ground, but stopping before knocking him unconscious. Unwilling to let Tony walk away, Bernardo goes after him and produces a knife. After a brief duel, Bernardo fatally stabs Riff before Tony fatally stabs Bernardo. The gang flees when the police arrive, and Chino walks away last with Riff's gun. Scene's kind of weird. Most of this movie appears to be practical. If it's not, it's like top of the line CG that's being used because we're dealing with fucking Spielberg. This is the only scene that looks kind of weird. The lighting's kind of odd. It looks like they might be like in a...
It's a salt mine, right?
Yeah, but it looks like fake, like the aerial shots they have of it. I don't know. It just looks kind of weird. It looks not fake. What's the... Uncanny Valley. Like there's something just off about it that I couldn't figure out, but
I wonder if that's why they gave Riff the dialogue where he literally explains where they're standing.
Yeah.
He's like, it's salt, in case you were wondering. It could also be that it just looks weird because the what's happening is really weird. I was expecting a big fight. Were you expecting a big fight? Yes, you were, because this is what you live for, Alex, right? This was is the Royal Rumble inspired by the West Side Story Rumble?
I would assume so, because like the whole concept of the Royal Rumble spawned from the Battle Royal, so that's where you get the royal portion of it. But the Rumble, and especially knowing that Vince McMahon probably hadn't seen a movie since West Side Story. What do we call it? The Royal Rumble? Yeah.
No knives though.
No. Well, maybe somewhere. I mean, there's been fucking 40 of them at this point, so maybe. Anyway, I wanted to call out, though, with the odd appearance. This movie felt very 2010s, early 2010s, and it really felt like Spielberg just discovered the lens flare, because they are all over the place in this movie, brother.
There's one that is almost blinding towards the end of the movie when Anita declares that she's not American, she's Puerto Rican, and the fucking sunset is coming through from the window. Like, where are my sunglasses?
But to your point, yes, it's kind of underwhelming because it's a bunch of Ridley Scott would say, God, I can't tell what's going on here. And you think of, there's kind of some tussling going about, and then before you know it, two people are dead, and it's like, huh?
But also, you are somebody who appreciates combat sports, and Bernardo has been built up as this boxer. And I mean, get real with me. He should have beaten Tony, right? Like,
yeah, he's just working the body. He didn't try to take his head off.
Bernardo versus Ansel Elgort, this should be a clear winner, and yet somehow Baby Driver gets the best of him.
The street fighting legend Ansel Elgort here, adding to his legacy.
Is it just the size?
I don't fucking know. Just beating the shit out of homeboy here. Yeah, Bernardo, that was a failing of the movie, in my opinion. Because, yeah, he should have just outboxed him. But again, we have to, Ansel must pose. You
gotta, what do you call it? You have to put him over? You have to put Baby Driver over?
Got to make him look strong. Yeah, put him over.
And then he murders Bernardo. I think that the way it's staged, and this might be a failing of Spielberg, when you look at it, the way it happens, Riff gets killed by accident, right? Like, it's almost like he twists and turns and gets pushed, and then before you know it, he lands on Bernardo's knife. But then Tony grabs the knife and lunges at Bernardo and kills him. So, yes, they're both murders, but I think one is worse than the other. And I don't know about you, but I felt like that was a point of no return for that character, for Tony. Like, he went and killed a man. So it's a problem because we're supposed to root for Tony for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, asking me to root for Ansel Elgort in the first place, I think, was kind of a lost cause. But yeah, I get at this point, we're past the point of no return with Tone.
Anton. Maybe they were hoping for a different effect, Alex. Maybe you would grow to respect him. You're like, oh my God, he was a badass. It wasn't just stories.
I feel stunning.
Eso, Maria.
And dancing.
Oh.
Feel like running and dancing for joy. For I'm loved by a pretty, wonderful boy.
Maria gushes about her love for Tony to her coworkers in the late night cleaning crew at Gimbel's, which is a department store. A lot of movies you can watch from the 80s, especially based in like New York, that reference Gimbel's. Once their shift is over, she spots Chino, who reveals that Tony killed Bernardo. She cannot believe it until Tony comes to her room later and admits it. She is furious with him, but begs him not to turn himself in to the police, as it would mean losing him as well. They plan to run away together. Valentina laments Bernardo's and Riff's deaths while reflecting on her interracial relationship with her deceased white husband, Doc. This is Rita Moreno.
Yeah, that's the Spielberg pulling out all the stops for the nostalgia. It's like, there is a reason why we did stunt casting for this part. So Rita, you better come out and play. Do you think, okay, you were talking, as everybody's singing, is this her? Because if it's Rita Moreno, that's pretty fucking impressive.
Yeah, I would assume so. I haven't seen anything, I've done pretty limited research so far into this, but I haven't seen anything that like calls out like, this person didn't sing for their part. So go Rita Moreno.
Give her more scenes. Take some from Maria and Tony. Just turn this into the procedural where Valentina is going around trying to clear Tony's name. That's the movie that we should have gotten after. This is just, by now, like, we go off the rails. Like, I think that the movie is somewhat interesting, engaging, while Riff and Bernardo are alive. But then, not only does the rumble takes off the two most interesting characters, takes them off the board, they're gone from the movie, but also whatever sympathy I may have had for Maria completely goes when she forgives her brother's murderer within 5 minutes of confronting him.
Dude, they bang.
Yeah. I mean, in for a penny, in for a pound.
I guess so. At this, we've made it this far. Why not, just complete the story here? Why not finish the story, as Cody Rhodes would say?
If you let them take you from me, how do I forgive you for that?
After identifying Bernardo's body at the morgue, Anita returns home and sees Maria and Tony together as he is leaving the apartment. Anita argues with Maria, but eventually accepts that she and Tony are in love. At the boxing gym, Chino plans to kill Tony with the gun, but the Sharks tell him, "You kill a gringo, they kill you." There's some pretty interesting, what do they say? Whites kill everything in the end? I'm like, yeah. I thought that was, I don't know if that line is verbatim from the original script or the original play, but yeah, accurate.
Can confirm.
Yeah.
You just remind me, Alex, I was going to ask you, did you have trouble following 40% of this movie because it was in Spanish without subtitles?
To be honest with you, I kind of at this point try to sometimes, if there's like if it's a bilingual film, I'll try to see how much I can pick up on. Because again, I've lived in Central Texas for over 20 years, and that's Canelo Alvarez, the boxer. When he does his press conferences, I'll sometimes listen to him without subtitles to see if I can pick up on what he's saying. I'm at the point where like maybe every fourth or fifth word I can pick up, but also
Gringos.
Well, duh. But like there were some full sentences in here that like I couldn't. I don't have to tell you. You speak two different languages, where it gets to a point with some things that in my brain, I don't know if I can translate that exactly word for word, but I know what they're saying. Like at the end where they, she doesn't want them to take Baby Driver. All the lines of Spanish dialogue in that moment, I was kind of able to put together exactly what it was. So, one, to your point, yes, it's inconsiderate on the behalf of the Disney Plus streaming app. But two, for me personally, I took it as kind of like this personal challenge And it helped me forget about Ansel Elgort.
I wonder if that was Disney Plus's call or if that's Spielberg's call. He's just flexing his muscle and it's like, fuck it. Let them learn Spanish.
Yeah, that's I have really no problem with that, to be honest with you.
The problem when you speak Spanish is that suddenly you hear them say the same thing twice. Once in Spanish, and then they give you a different version in English. So it feels a little redundant.
Murió luchando por su dignidad. And for pride, mi hermano. Orgullo puertorriqueño.
Schrank interrogates Maria at her apartment about Tony's whereabouts. Maria sends Anita to ask Valentina about the safety of a cousin as a way of passing on a warning for Tony in front of Schrank. However, at docks, Anita encounters the Jets who insult and attempt to gang rape her, even as their girlfriends protest. Valentina eventually arrives and intervenes. Not a fun scene at all. And no. Anita, in the end, fucking obviously traumatized by the situation, calls Valentina a traitor for housing the Jets, and then makes up a story on the spot that Chino has killed Maria and says she's going to return to Puerto Rico. Very fucking intense scene.
Earlier, Alex, when I said, why didn't Spielberg said this in present day? And you're like, because it wouldn't be fun.
Fun being relative to the exact situation we were talking about, all right?
There are two real victims in West Side Story. One is Chino, who gets mistreated, I guess, in a way. He's like the good guy that
he is
that
the good
guy. he's the one guy that's trying to better himself, and then by the end of the movie, he's a murderer, and I think he's the one person that's gonna go to prison. But then, even more so, is Anita, who she's not just mistreated by the story, but also mistreated by the movie, by the writers. I can rationalize that Maria forgives Tony because she's 18 and she's stupid and she thinks she's in love. But Anita's older and she's been shown as being a lot more aware of how the world works and everything. So I can't believe that in the span of a song, she changes her mind about Maria and Tony, and she's like, all right, well, I mean, you have to
Which
leave,
again, you make it sound like during the course of a song is a short period of time. Based on the timeline of the movie, it literally, like, she does make up her mind and like shoot 4 minutes about what's going on. She's like, all right.
She starts by slapping Maria, and then by the end of the song, she's like, all right, you have my blessing, but you need to go.
When love comes so strong, there is no right or wrong.
And then she goes through this horrible experience over there, and that's when she gets a triumphant shot at the end after she escapes and she gets the sunset just coming through the window. And I don't know what to make of that final thing. Like, what is the movie saying? Is she right? Like, is she right in rejecting being labeled as an American and instead saying that she's Puerto Rican? Like, as if they're two different things, when the entire time, like, the movie, I thought, was arguing, hey, these kids are dumb. We're all American. That's the whole point, right? They need to understand that we're all American. But then Anita's exit from the movie, because we don't see her again, it's kind of like a high moment, like, her triumph in a way is her telling them, well, fuck you. I'm not going to be American. I'm going to be Puerto Rican. And that feels like the movie, I wouldn't say it's celebrating that division, but it's certainly it feels like it's taking a side, and it's not the side that I would expect it to take, right? Like, if the whole point of showing us this tragedy is to promote unity, having one of the most likable characters say, no, you know what? I think that we just need to stay apart and fuck you all. And I understand where she's coming from, but the fact that the movie endeavors to put her in that position so she can say that feels like, I don't know, it just feels like such a complicated stance from a movie that's just a lot of singing and dancing and two really dumb kids thinking they're in love. Were you conflicted when that happened? Like, I didn't know, it's like I was supposed to be happy. I mean, I was happy that she escaped, but I didn't really care about anybody else in the movie. So I guess that's why I was feeling like I wanted more from that story thread.
With movies like this, I sometimes forget, especially this story. I mean, it is a dark story. It involves a lot of people dying and shit senselessly. So I was kind of still a bit reeling from what preceded it. But what you're describing is a situation, a conflict and an issue that obviously is still as relevant today as it was in 1957 when this thing was, pen to papered. And yeah, I guess I'm not entirely sure what the movie's trying to say. It's also interesting that this moment we're talking about here, like there's legitimately like only 5 minutes left in the movie, if that. So you don't really have time to get your bearings about you or really fixate on it, I guess I should say.
Yep. You're still thinking about it, and then the next thing you get hit with is Ansel Elgort in his Oscar clip.
Scene.
Yeah.
He reacts to the news that Maria's dead. He kind of holds his head and he hits like that high-pitched wail, which I get it, man. But again,
hey, you can't say he didn't go for it.
Yeah. You know, in this gal for maybe a week, you know.
But they did have sex. So, you know, that changes everything.
It's true. Especially back then. Because, you know, you would have sex with like, if you had sex with two people in your lifetime, you were going to hell for sure. So there's a lot weighing on his mind at this point. But Valentina rightly condemns the Jets. She's like, you disgusting pieces of shit is what she calls them, and tells them to get the fuck out.
So dishonor on you, dishonor on your family. You dishonor your dead.
Yes, that's right. She then relays Anita's message to Tony, who runs into the streets begging for Chino to kill him as well. Anybody's tries to get him off the street, but fails. As Maria arrives to Tony's relief, Chino emerges and fatally shoots him. After Tony dies in her arms, a devastated Maria takes the gun and aims it at the gathered Jets and Sharks, berating them for the senseless deaths their conflict has caused. She then tearfully drops the gun. As the police arrive to arrest Chino, the gang finally ends the feud by coming together to carry Tony's corpse into docks, with Maria following behind.
Do you think they were taking Tony's corpse to a trash compactor?
Fucking Shrank and Krupke showing up. This isn't how we do this. It is tonight.
Yeah, Rita Moreno is leading the charge.
Oh man, you caught me out of nowhere on that one. That was good. Very Romeo and Juliet ending, like to a hilarious degree. Like if you just watch this, you know, if you were someone who hadn't seen that many movies or read many stories or whatnot, and you watch it, you're like, this sound, you know, I feel like I've read this before somewhere.
Except Juliet dies. That's the right. They spared Maria. I if I had
Claire Danes shot herself in the head.
Right, but she could have. Right, that's the thing. Like if I had picked up on the similarities with Romeo and Juliet, then I would have figured out that he's gonna think that she's dead, so he is going to die, and then when she sees that he's dead, she is going to kill herself.
The tragedy is she dies also.
Yeah. So here Spielberg pulled the punches at the very end. It's like, no. You know what?
It is funny because both West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet, you'll find some people sometimes making a reference to that clearly don't know the story at all. Like, you know, you hear people talk about young lovers like, oh, they're just like Romeo and Juliet. And it's like, you know how that story fucking ends, pal? And that's with West Side Story also. You know, most people that would reference it, I think, would do so in a playful manner about these like two gangs from the 50s. They snap their fingers and, you know, they're having a good time. It's like, dog.
How many can I kill, Chino? I still have one bullet left for me.
So anyway, it's all bad. Ansel Elgort dies, and but not after Julio said, not before, excuse me, getting his Oscar clip, and then obviously Rachel Zegler gets hers as well here. Caught me by surprise because this bad boy's got 12 minutes of credits.
I mean, there's a lot of people. It's a lot of sharks and a lot of jets that you have to.
Well, it's also the intense amount of choreography, costume design, set design. You know, Spielberg's productions. It's just basically him. He's like standing over a city, conducting them. Is basically how it works. It's like what's that, Sandoche, New York, or whatever,
yes.
where they build like the living set. Yeah.
Just because you brought up the character of Anybody's, and we skipped Anybody's in the recap, because that's just kind of a separate journey that comes to a very, I don't remember if the original has this. It seems to be a girl that doesn't want to be a girl. So it's this is set in the fucking 60s. So I don't know that we even had like that you would call somebody trans back then. You would just react like with the way that these idiots react, where they're like, no, she's a girl. And so the whole story with anybody's is that the Jets will not take anybody's as part of the gang. I think the only person that maybe was willing to do it would be Tony, but Tony left. And so anybody's entire struggle through the movie is to get the Jets to respect them. And then at the end, they kind of do, I guess, right? I don't know who all the Jets, apart from Riff, are interchangeable. Like they're just like meld together, just like white, angry, racist dudes. But one of them says, "You done good, buddy boy." You remember that part?
Yeah.
It's after anybody gives him the alert that Chino has a gun and is hunting for Tony. And I'm like, that is such a weird like moment of pride to put at this time in the story when there's already 2 people dead and we're about to get into the sexual assault towards Anita. But then again, this movie does that all the time because I've seen West Side Story on stage, I've seen the original movie, and I've seen this. And all 3 versions have different arrangement of where the musical numbers go. And even in some cases, who sings them. And the placement of I Feel Pretty in this movie is so fucking weird because Spielberg decided to put it right after the murders of Riff and Bernardo, which I think
highest highs, lowest lows, baby.
Yeah, but it's just whiplash, you know? I want to say, I am pretty sure that for sure in the
We're
movie,
talking about the same guy that let Upham get away. So, you know,
that's true.
I get what you mean, though. It's hard right in terms of like tone that you're supposed to accept.
Yeah. But anyway, Alex, we made it. We made it to the end of West Side Story.
In about 3 hours less than it would take to watch the actual movie.
Yeah. And with less songs, which may be good, maybe bad. It's up to you.
We sing once a year.
Yes.
Oh, man, we haven't even talked about why we're doing this movie. So let's move on to Real Talk and we can cover it there.
Yes, yeah. Stay tuned in case you don't know the secret origin of this episode. Let's go to Real Talk.